Fragments of Silicon, whether you remember it or not.
All right, welcome to another installment of the Fragments of Silicon Daylight interviews. This week we have Jan of Hypnotic Owl with us.
Hello, nice to be
Well,
here.
It's good to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good to hear. I think we are doing fine. Maybe a bit sleepy.
Oh yeah, me too.
Um, just waiting for the caffeine to kick in.
Yeah. I have my second coffee just before the show. Now I'm tempering it with a cold beer, so I think I'm gonna be ready for this.
That's handy. Anyway, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the game, the studio, and all that. And we start by asking this question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Okay, so personal. I think back in the day, I remember one of my best buddies had I think it was a Super Nintendo. So I was like transfixed with that. And then when my father got us like our first PC, I think it was still DOS, the first one. And he showed me like how to start like these shareware games. Yeah, I immediately fell in love. Never thought that I could make games, like never crossed my mind until much later in my life. Yeah, after I was finished with school, and so in Germany, we had this. So you had to go to military or social stuff. So of course, I chose the social stuff instead. Um, and yeah, then my parents got a bit worried that I'm not really finding any jobs. I wanted to do something with computers because like I was really into Linux and stuff. Yeah, and then one day my mom read in the newspaper an ad for like a board game company here in Germany, Ravensburger, and she was like, "Oh, you always do like your games with your friends in the cellar," because I had like a pen and paper round, and I was like developing my own pen and paper system, or the second system back in the day. Yeah, and then it clicked for me like, "Oh my god, you can do this as a job. You can make money making games. That's amazing." And I was like, "Okay, that's now I know where I want to go." So I looked up the nearest university that I could like attend um, with my like middling grades, especially like my math grade was really bad. Um, and Yeah, the nearest university that I don't have to pay like lots of monies for because we in Germany in Berlin we've got like the Games Academy, but that's like really expensive, and I'm not rich or anything. So yeah, I took one in Magdeburg, which is in East Germany, little town. Um, yeah, I learned all the stuff I needed to do to make games because I thought like I'm gonna be a game designer, so I need to know everything to work with the programmers and work with the designers, the graphics people and stuff. So I took computer visualistic was the course called or the grander thingy. Yeah, and then after that, I don't know. My career was pretty straightforward. After that, I went to Berlin to work for the games company, which is not that games company, but the games company. It's a German company. Was of a medium-sized back in the day. It doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, I was there as a game designer, and then when they went insolvent, a new company founded out of their top people there, out of the leads, and they wanted me to be involved as the lead game designer, which was like, okay, sure. I was, I think, working for a year or two there, so that was like a pretty steep increase of responsibility. Not in money though. I was still pretty badly paid, but of course I took it. I was young and adventurous and excited by all the possibilities, and project was interesting. It was HeroCon Online, which is an browser-based MMO. The company was called Silver Style Studios, but yeah, after a while I was kind of burned out on that. Like I think 3 or 4 years there, I felt like I didn't get the freedom to actually do what I love, like make games, and I'm more like hired to write down the ideas of the boss in a language that the programmers could understand, like find all the edge cases before the programmers complain, which obviously didn't always work out. Lots of complaining. Programmers love to complain. Yeah, I had a buddy, a good friend of mine, who I met in university, who also wanted to go into movies or games, but he chose games in the end. Who worked for the company Dedalek for a while. I think that one's a bit more known throughout the world. They do like these adventures.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he at that time he was suffering from burnout, because the working circle, like, it wasn't really nice to work for the company, and I was also like looking for a way out. And we thought like, okay, I mean, like this company didn't like evolve very well, and the one before went insolvent, and we basically figured, okay, so going insolvent, we can do that on our own. Like we don't need anyone to pay us bad. We can pay ourselves badly, and then we can have all the freedoms that we want. So we sat together, decided we're gonna found a company, a little indie company. uh, Came up with the name Hypnotic Owl, or well, he came up with that. He had this in his back pocket for a while now. Wanted to do a company called Hypnotic Owl, and yeah, I quite love the name. And yeah, that's how we started. Moved to Leipzig, where he's living. I'm here right now, and yeah, that was what, 8 or 9 years ago. Since then, we've been making all kinds of games and not a lot of money.
I mean, is your time at Hypnotic Owl a full time affair, or is it a side gig while you work a day job?
It's full time, although like full time isn't like 40 hours a week, because I honestly I feel like 40 hours a week is a waste. It doesn't work. So I think I'm currently doing mostly like 20, 15, 20 hours to 30, depending on like what's happening. But it's now I think 50-50 working on contract work and working on our own projects to make money. Obviously, we need to do the contract work, but yeah, it's full time. We said like, yeah, we're gonna do this for real. And I think
Yeah.
it's pretty hard. Like you have to be really committed, and like you don't have, if you don't like sleeping, then you can do like your job and then games on the side. But yeah,
Well, we've
not
talked
really.
to people who do one, and we've talked to people who do the other. Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's both a viable way, and I'd recommend anyone to do a job and then games on the side, because it's so hard to make money with games. But yeah, I kind of just accepted that I'm not gonna make a lot of money. I mean, I never really made a lot of money, and I'm kind of comfortable living like below the poverty line because
Well,
I don't have a lot of expenses. I just love sleeping and making games, so that's what I concentrate on.
I mean, that is a usual thread on this program, no matter what the background, the
Mm,
passion to make games. I mean, I think you do have to have it given how complicated games are to make.
for
Oh,
sure.
like, it's like even small games, quote unquote, have a lot more going on with them than what appears to be.
Mm, for sure,
Believe
but it's a blessing and a curse, right?
uh,
On the one hand, like this passion is what leads or what enables the companies to exploit people a lot. Like companies that just like hire or not really
Yep.
hire, but like get people to work for them for
Mm.
free, like as an internship, but they actually do real work 40 hours a week, and then yeah, it's kind of a shame, but without passion you can't survive as a game developer because on the one hand it's really draining, on the other hand it's badly paid. But yeah, I think for a lot of people and for me as well, it's I don't think I can or want to do anything else. I love making games, and that's just the reality. If I don't get paid well, well, I guess I'm not getting paid well then. But that's kind of what brings me a lot of joy in my life. So that's why I'm doing it.
Well, once again, not an uncommon story on this program.
I
Like,
bet, yeah.
and though the passion isn't just a, let's say, corporate or exploitation thing. It's like, we've talked to a lot of indie people and you know people who are not necessarily in the AAA space that work long hours
Mm.
um, on full time on a game because, well, that passion drives them. Maybe too far in that direction. And you mentioned you have suffered from burnouts uh, a couple of times in larger spaces. I'm assuming that the reason you are 20-25 hours a week is to avoid that.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I just recently read again from studies like suggesting that back in the day when we were hunter gatherers, like 15 hours a week was like to gather food to actually basically work to survive. And it feels to me also like as a really healthy way. And I've been thinking because of the burnout that my colleague suffered more than I. I mean, I for sure got some a little bit too, but um, I think I got out early enough, and I never had like the kind of experiences my colleague had. But yeah, I thought a lot about healthy working and um, work-life balance because as an indie developer, as someone who's self-employed, who works from home, this is like something you have to figure out, or else you're not gonna survive this. Yeah, and 15 hours is basically my target. I can't quite afford to do it yet, but I feel like this is like what everybody should strive to. I mean, it sounds a bit weird, right, with the 40-hour week as a basis around the world, but I also read another study who found that like 90-minute chunks are the best for concentration. And I feel like just this is what I've always had in my life. Like I can do like 90 minutes. I just get lost in a task, but then I need some time to recoup, to regenerate, and then I can do another one. And then I don't know. It's more or less like with all everything that goes on in your normal life, right? You got to do chores and meet people. If you've got a wife, a girlfriend, children. There's a lot of going on, and we put a lot of time and work, and I don't think it's worth it. So yeah, I feel like that's the best way to live. I think for everyone, but at least for me, I can feel that there's truth in that. So that's what I strive to do, and yeah.
It's a good philosophy, I think. Like, especially given the tales of crunch that's pervasive in the
Hmm.
industry. Like, um, and I would say that yeah, you avoided major burnout since you are still developing games. And
Yeah,
actually, like you know, that kind of burnout can be very long lasting.
for sure.
Like,
Yeah, it could destroy you. You could
yeah,
not survive the burnout, and there are people like dying from that. And I also think that stress, in particular, is a health hazard that's not really discussed. Like everybody's, kind of aware of it and makes fun of it. Like, oh, it's got a stressful week and this and that. But the health consequences of being under stress all the time. Uh, Although it's really well studied and like horrible, like nobody's really taking care of like getting rid of this stress. And I feel like for a lot of people, I think we're getting a little bit off track here, but for a lot of
yeah,
people, like a lot of stress it's an important topic for me though.
yeah,
Like stress is like they feel like they have to be stressed, and they feel bad if they're not stressed enough. Like, oh my god, I've got all this, like they not feel comfortable with free time. And then when they've got a lot of stress, they feel like they are also achieving a lot. It's like with multitasking. You feel like you're doing a lot, but actually if you would just like do one and then the other, it would be much more efficient. um, yeah. So, but yeah, really, I think especially like with indie game developers, I think that's a big thing they gotta watch out for, because you can burn yourself with your passion quite easily, especially if you have like a full-time job on the side, or like this is your main thing as a full-time job, and then you do games on the side. You're gonna burn yourself if you don't watch out.
yes. Like, right. I suppose recentering the conversation around your body of work here. Um, let's see. I guess we'll start with the mini games and experimental titles,
Hmm.
if only briefly, because you've got quite a few here. Like such titles as Dank Horse and Brain Fucked and
Yeah.
Aurora. Like,
Right.
what goes into one of your experimental titles or a mini game?
Right. It's quite varied. So Aurora, for example, is actually our first game that we ever
Uh huh.
worked on together, like my colleague and I. Before we founded Hypnotic Owl, we just built this, and we built it mobile first as a little point and click adventure, centered around the simple idea of a time loop. Like you're lost in space, more or less. You wake up as Dr. Bergstrom, I think, and then you've got to figure out how to solve the time loop before it resets again, and you've got to restart everything. And we really like the minimalist graphics. I mean, on the one hand, because we can't do uh, great graphics, unfortunately. We are both like more programmer game designers, not artists in that sense. So that's a good start for us, like a good basis. But also we love the old school stuff, right? So it goes hand in hand. And yeah, and for this we just wanted to see if we were able to make a game together, like if we could work together, because that's always like a question you gotta ask yourself, no matter how much you like someone, like working together with them is different. Like you you're not just deciding which movie you're gonna watch, right? You're gonna decide how the game plays out, and if you can't communicate right, if you can't handle disagreements, you can't work together. And yeah, with Aurora, we found that we could work well together, that we were like excited to work together, and then showed it a couple of friends, and they were all like very interested and wanted to play the game. Although like it's a tough game to play because like it the information, like the visual information, is really minimal, and the information you get via dialogue is also not very deep. So figuring out what's going on, that there's a time loop and all that stuff, is tough to say the least. I don't think like you can play through the game without really knowing. I mean, I'd love to see someone who managed to finish that game on their own. Yeah, and then a lot of the other titles, for example, are game jam titles. So we like to do game jams. I mean, I'm not the biggest game jam person because I take a long time to do stuff, and I always feel like I don't do good work if I am like on a tight timeline, if there's a deadline looming. Although that did change just recently. Like we've just recently worked on a game called Bar Hop, which we haven't put on our site yet. It will come out soon. It's a simple arcade game, basically Frogger. And I worked on this using Game Maker 2, and this is a really good tool for game jams. That makes it really easy, and it makes it it's just a lot of fun to work in. And yeah, I think most of our little games are kind of coming from this space of either it's a game jam or it's just something we want to try out. One of the last games, I think my buddy, my colleague Hannes, or Crabman, as he's calling himself, or is called, made was he partook in a Nokia game jam where they worked on games that would work on a Nokia mobile phone. So he's got really tight restrictions. He's working on some kind of weird code base. I don't remember. Was it? I forgot. But it's a weird way to program. But somehow he was like interested in how can I make a game in this context. Um, yeah, I think Dank Horse we was something Hannes did on the Amaze event. I don't know if you know the Amaze. Amaze is like it's in my opinion the best gaming event in the whole world. It's in Berlin once a year.
Yeah,
You know that?
yeah, I think I've heard of it.
You gotta come. It's really great. They got a new location there. But we'll not be there this year, but next year I'm sure we're gonna be there as well. And
I mean,
it's just a lot of cool people, a lot of really interesting games. They are more interested in like flashy, artsy, strange, and weird games, but like you will find um, a lot of big names there as well who appreciate the weirdness in gaming. So it's an interactive art convention basically.
mm,
Yeah, and they also host a game jam, and yeah, Dank Horse came out of that. It's just like he just had an idea, a weird idea, and he wanted to do that. For Crabman, for Hannes, it's often a game starts with a name, like he's got a weird pun in mind, and he wanna do a game around that. For me, it's mostly I've got like a weird mechanic in mind, and I'm like, I really wanna figure out like how this feels, and then we do these little games. Sometimes for game jams, like he does the game jams mostly, and sometimes, in my case, for example, Eldritch Arena was my was me trying to do an auto battler. I've never played an auto battler, to be honest, except my own. Oh, I've played auto pets now, which is awesome.
mhm.
But I like the idea of these auto battling, and I just have to build the team. And I think there's still some ground to be covered. And I'm thinking about like making a game where you not just like combining troops to make better troops, and you just have to figure out like which troop goes the best with which other troop, but where you can actually program their behavior as well. Like tell the healer he's got to heal at an, at like 25% of health, or like the I don't know assassin to go after the enemy with the lowest health. And the more experience they get, the more rules you can give them. So to play the whole idea of the auto battler and the strategy finding and the tactical thinking behind it on a different level, on the level of how do I tell my troops to behave in battle. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track again. I'm excited about this idea.
Not necessarily. Like, you're talking about a potential thing that might happen.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna try this. I think.
Like, anyway, I suppose we should talk about the game that we've been having on display here. That is The Wizard, which now has a Wiz Harder edition available.
Right. Yeah. We've been thinking about the name a bit, but so I
Uh-huh.
think the origins.
I think it's funny, to be fair.
He has laughed multiple times at that title.
All right. Well, the title right now is actually The Wizard, or um, How I Learned to. Oh, damn it! Why can't I remember this? The Wizard, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying About My Face and Love the Tactical Dungeon Crawl. That's the current title. But we've hired someone to do like help us with the marketing, because we are not good with marketing at all.
I mean, I
And
can
they said
appreciate it. I can appreciate a good Doctor Strangelove reference. So
that's nice, but they're telling us like, oh, it's much too long of a name. Like you can't put a game on Steam with that. Like nobody's gonna find it, and it's true. If you try to search for the Wizard on Steam, you will not find us, except if you like put in the Wizard or and then colon, and then you can find it. It's a bit annoying,
and
to say the
unfortunately, we
least.
don't speak Japanese, where you could just shorten it to like Wizdon and have him sell a billion copies.
Yeah. So well, he suggested we should call it Kevin the Wizard, because our wizard is called Kevin. And yeah, if you search for Kevin, you can't find anything on Steam. So maybe that's a good idea, but who knows? In any case, the wizard. So the wizard has an interesting story as well, like how it came to be. Because the first game we as a company worked at, like we did Aurora before we founded Hypnotic All, and then we figured like Aurora is cool, but it's probably too limited of a scope and of appeal that we can actually sell this game. Like it's a cool game, but nobody's gonna pay money for that, especially on the mobile market, which we kind of tried this game all on. Um, so we worked on a role-playing game, tactical role-playing game called Till Last Light, which there is like the combat. Like there's a little game loop we put out as an experimental game as well now. But basically, we wanted to do a bigger game out of it. We kind of thought we're gonna keep it 2D. We're gonna keep it small so we can actually finish it. But our first project, it quickly got way too big. Crabman always says it's supposed to be Mass Effect in a Caribbean setting with pirates and flying ships. And yeah, you can quickly get a notion that that's quite a big project actually. And so we failed with that. We were not able to finish that. We were weren't able to get it off the ground. We did like a little prototype that's playable now, but we had one artist at a time, and we just one day we sat together and we just calculated like how long do you need for one sprite? Okay, how many sprites will you need to do? And it was like, oh my god, you will be working years, just years, only on creating sprites. And yeah, he was not pleased to hear that, and we didn't have any money to hire more people, so we had to shelve that and freeze it. And we still hope we will finish that at some point. But then we were without a project, and Crabman was doing game jams, and I was also tinkering around. And I always wanted to do so. The sprites you see here, these are made by a dude who calls himself Oryx. I think he's working for Bungie, and in his spare time, he does these little sprites, 16 by 16 pixels, and I love them. I'm so in love with them, and I always want to do a game with this. So I just thought, like, okay, well, I've got free time. We don't have a project. We're just gonna try whatever, see what comes of it. So I built this little dungeon crawler thingy. And then when it came to interactions, to casting spells, I was like, oh man, I don't want to put just a button there, and then I don't know how will it decide where to shoot. So I don't know. On a weird day, I just thought like, hey, maybe I could just select the tiles around him, and then depending on the kind of pattern you select on the tiles, it will cast a spell, and it will cast it in the direction you point this little pattern in. And that worked kind of well. And it was immediately fun. Like this little interaction with game design, you often say if you that like interacting with the game should be fun. Like um, even when it's not like a game, like the interaction should behave like a little toy, right? Like jumping should be fun. It should be like just fun to jump around, and just like casting spells like that was just pleasing in a way. So I thought like, okay, I think I got something there. And I think like a couple days later, I realized that it's this pattern drawing is basically what you do on your mobile phone when you want to unlock it. It's also 3x3 usually. So I tested a lot of these patterns just on my phone. Like, is it easy to draw? Is it fun to draw? Yeah, and I built this little game. There was a game jam there as well, or like a competition for. I think Amazon had like this games platform called Tizen, and they made this Tizen jam, and you could like win a lot of money. And we were like, okay, let's try it with my game. Let's try it with the wizard. So we sat together and we built the original The Wizard game, which you can play for free on our website and I think on Congregate and whatever. And we tried to submit it there, but they had such a weird, complicated way to get approved that we didn't actually manage to get approved. We always had like one weird bug, and they would just send us back like doesn't work on our platform, but we couldn't test it on the platform. It was really frustrating, but yeah, in the end we failed to do it there, but we were very happy with the game we had there. So we put it on I think on Flash Game License was what it was called back in the day. This was a way to sell like these little games to websites to host them. And yeah, we managed to sell I think 2 licenses. We wanted to have I think like $500 at least per license, and this was like a lot of money for most websites. So we didn't sell a lot of licenses, but yeah, we put it on our website. We put it then on at some point on Congregate, and what was the other big one called?
Big fish?
Newgrounds. Newgrounds.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we got some good feedback there. A lot of wishes, like I wish there were like save points, and I wish there was this and that. And yeah, we like that was the first game we really released and cared for. And I think like when we decided we're gonna do it again, like we're gonna do an updated version of this game. It had like 500,000 plays, so it was definitely our biggest title, kind of.
Hmm.
And yeah, Germany had a new way to get funding for games, especially. So we went all in. We said like, okay, right, we're gonna scrape some money together from friends and family, gonna put it in so we get some funding back, and then we're gonna build the Wizard, the Wiz Harder edition. So just basically the Wizard, but like with all the stuff we felt we should probably add, and with cool lighting, because like the old game looks pretty flat. It just has sprites, and you could easily put on bump maps, put on some colored lighting to make everything look just much more exciting and much more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what we did. Like we took 9 months to make the game, but
Mhm.
uh, still not enough time to really put everything in. So yeah, we're still working on it. It's in early access now, and yeah, we are looking forward to finishing end of the year. Got
Yeah.
like a publisher who is gonna port it to Switch as well, and all
Mhm.
the like Xbox and PlayStation probably, because it,
Right.
it does play well with the controller.
So is the 1.0 version going to be whiz hard with a vengeance?
Hmm.
Huh.
Basically, but probably it's gonna be Kevin the Wizard, if that really is the better title, like to sell the game. I think we're gonna try it. I mean, Crapman is really adamant on just keeping it like the Wizard with Harder Edition.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I think like we should probably try and account for marketability a bit more to maybe make some money at some point where we don't have to um, do so much contract work to survive.
Well, I
Not
mean,
sure.
that would be nice. Yeah.
For
And
sure.
certainly, like, so what state of development is uh, the Wiz Harder edition in right now? Like, how much has been completed and how far do you have to go?
So the base is pretty much in there now. You have more or less everything you had or you can play for free with the web version, with the HTML5 game. But of course, better graphics and checkpoints, which is a huge improvement back in the old game. If you die, you've got to replay the whole level, and it's rough. It's rough because it's honestly it's not an easy game in a way, but if you figure out how it works, you you can get through it really without getting hit at all. But you gotta figure it out, and this process is tough to balance for, because as me as a developer, I know this, like this is the way I think. Basically, this game is how I think when I play a game. So if you figure that out, it's pretty easy. If you don't, it's pretty rough. And the checkpoints allow us to find like an in between room. Um, I've got a lot of at least a couple of features I really wanted to add in the old game that are uh, in the works right now. For example, one idea that I wasn't really sure if it's good or not, but I didn't have the time to try, is what would happen if, like right now, you can just cast your magic and you don't have any limitation on that. Like cast a spell, it takes a turn. Like this is the resource you need to uh, consider. But what if you also have mana? So you can't cast all the spells all the time. Um, this is the one I'm working on now, but that also means I need to put in. We right now have health potions, and if you like walk on a health potion, you consume it right like at that point. It's also
Mhm.
like it's from the old game when like I worked on the old game, and a lot of the design choices were also like, what's the easiest way to do this? Like, I don't want to have like an inventory. That's like a lot of work to implement. So I just did. You just walk over it. He drinks it. Like, if you have full health, well, bad idea to walk over it then. So I want to have like at least a little belt where you can like store up to, I don't know, 5 potions that I can do mana potions, and then I can implement like a mana restriction as well. And then I think that will fundamentally change the way you have to think through these levels, because a lot of this game is feels and behaves like a puzzle. If you understand how all the little entities work together and all the mechanics work together, you know, like, okay, I gotta do a step forward, then he's gonna take 2, then I have like 2 turns to do a spell, like how much health does this enemy have, so I gotta like plan accordingly. But if you also have to consider like how much mana do you have, that's gonna be interesting. Also because one of the biggest changes from the old game to the new is in the old game you got experience points by killing enemies, and I always felt like this. It never really felt good for me, but it's like an old school way of doing things. But I felt like I don't want to put the focus on killing stuff. I want to put the focus on learning stuff. Like this is what this game is more about. It's about learning the spells, learning the mechanics, learning how to move accordingly, learning the enemies. So now, if you cast a spell, um, you increase your aptitude in that spell, and like every X casts, you upgrade it a level. So the more you do a spell, the better you are in it, basically. Which allows you now to just like go in a corner and just cast one spell until you are in top level. But that's not fun, obviously. So yeah, I need to put a limit on that, and I think that's a good way to do that. And in accordance with that, I want to add a lot of gameplay options. I want players to be able to configure the game to be able to play basically the old game with all the old rules in this new one, and play the new game with the rules that I think are an improvement on that. But I know players that are used to the old game, they want to have it like it was back in the day, and they don't want no new stuff. So I want to be able to allow everybody to play it how they want to. I want to be able like more easily give players the choice to like modify the difficulty for themselves. I want to be able to tell to say to allow players basically to select how many health they want to start with, or like how much, if they have a belt or if they don't have a belt, if they have to consider mana or if they don't have to consider mana. This is the one. This package is the one I'm working on right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be really exciting. And then, yeah, the next steps will be a roguelike mode, because one of the things everybody was like asking was like, oh, we want to have more levels. We want to have like generated levels so we can play like as much as we want to. And obviously for Steam, that's also a good thing. The more players play your game, the more other like their friends see like, oh, he's playing the wizard like again today. And yeah, if you've got just like a fixed set of levels, you always have some limited replayability. So roguelike mode is something I'm definitely gonna do, especially because I like I like to implement that as well. Like I think it's interesting problem to solve, how to build a level in this particular game automatically. yeah, and then probably do like a daily mode as well. I want to allow players to like have one particular level that everybody has the same of every day, and you can like compare with your friends like how well they do. I think that's a cool stuff. And then yeah, I
The
don't
daily
know.
challenge.
Depending on how much time I have, like it could be anything I put in there. Like depends on how much I can do in this year.
Right. I suppose switching gears to another game that we want to talk about, the Pepper Prince, which we reviewed recently on the program.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
oh, good, good. Like, uh, so for the uninitiated, what is the Pepper Prince?
What is the Pepper Prince? The Pepper Prince, well, it's an ASCII art fairy tale point and click adventure.
I was gonna say, oh man, that is some ASCII.
Yes.
Uh,
This also, this is my
Nice use of the plus
colleague's game.
minus sign, though.
Yeah. Um, it's made in Game Maker too, by my colleague Crabman, and this one also started as a um, as a game jam title. So there is a Pepper Prince game jam mini game on our website too, which is basically just a clicker. So you farm peppers and gold, I think. And yeah, he kind of fell in love with this little world and with the ASCII art and the color scheme, and he wanted to do more of this. And then one time he said like, "Yeah, I want to do a point and click adventure in this world in ASCII art, and I want to have, as he likes to do this, I want to have a seasoning. I want to have multiple episodes, and we gonna call it Seasoning One." I was like, that's a great title, man. You sure you're gonna do like 5 games? And he was like, yes, gotta be 5 games at least. I have it all planned out. Like, oh, there's this huge arc that he's gonna go through all the emotions, all this really interesting stuff I want to talk about, and I'm gonna put it. I don't know why he's like that. I'm gonna put it in an ASCII art point and click adventure game that like is so niche that like there will only be like 5 people who really dig this kind of game. But yeah, I mean, you gotta do what you love. So I was like, sure, man, go ahead. And yeah, that's what he did. Worked on it like I know he put a lot of effort in this, especially like with the ASCII art. I mean, he's painting all that stuff like by hand, like putting one character after the other, and yeah, and then yeah, he's got this really intricate and emotional story that is, and it's often like with Crabman's games, you always have to look under the obvious, like the center. I mean, obviously it's the seasoning, obviously it's all the fun you can do with fairy tales and all this weird aesthetic with the ASCII art and the limited color scheme. But what he actually wants to do is talk about um, relationships. And that's what the game is about. It's about the Pepper Prince and his beloved King of the Sea or Prince of the Sea. Not sure. And they want to marry, and you are either a Hansel or Gretel, and you're gonna bake your task to bake the best cake for the wedding. I really appreciate it, by the way, how you managed to talk about episode 1 and 2 without actually spoiling the end of episode 1. That was really nicely done. Uh,
Not a
yeah,
problem. Do
and
try to
yeah,
avoid that. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah. So he's like episode 1. He put a lot of effort in, and then like I hassled him to do episode 2.
Uh-huh.
Um, where like it really turns a corner. The whole game gets much more, I think, like emotionally invested. Like the first one is pretty just fun, and the second one is more like about emotions. And yeah, he has part 3 almost ready, but he's not happy with it. He feels like it's not quite there where he wants to have it. And you can see also like an increase of quality, I think, from episode 1 to episode 2, and episode 3 is also like another increase. And he has some place to go. Like he's really interested in relationships and what difficulties they bring us, and like the expectations that are upon people who are in the relationship, and their own expectations of each other, and like how can you get together with another person when you're like, like separate individuals with each like different needs and wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then just put this in a silly point and click adventure. I mean, you said the first one, I was really surprised that I think you criticized the second one for having what did you say? The point and click problem of like you gotta combine stuff, and you just like, I don't know exactly what your criticism was, but
I think it was kind of unintuitive, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that was several games ago. But
Mhm.
we
Yeah, I
cover a
mean,
lot of games, and
yeah, that's true.
it's
Yeah,
like,
I don't want to put you on the spot here.
yeah, like I, we might not necessarily remember what we said some time ago. Like,
That's fine. That's fine. I think it was about like that you have to like combine stuff, and that if it gets like kind of random, like what you gotta combine, and you get stuck
yeah, I
in the
think
game.
it was doing the adventure game logic thing.
Yes, exactly. That's what you said. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and what you didn't criticize the first game for was like that it's actually just a series of fetch quests. If you really look at it, you just go to one place and they tell you, oh, I'm gonna give you this, but you gotta go get me this other thing, and then you go to the other place and they're like, oh yeah, sure, you get this, but you're gonna do something for me first. And it's quite intentional actually. It takes these tropes, it uses them, it kind of abuses them at points, and plays around with them a little bit. But yeah, you have to kind of be aware of how these games work, like from back in the day. I don't think you could give this like a 16-year-old kid right now and say like, okay, go ahead, have fun. Or maybe you can. I don't know. Kids these days, who knows? Uh, but it's supposed to be confusing and difficult at times. And interestingly, while he did put in like difficult spots on purpose, the most difficult stuff is there on accident, where he thought like, oh, everybody gonna figure that out easily, and then turns out, no, that's actually not the case. That's kind of weird thinking on your part. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's on the one hand, it's like a love letter to old school logic, old school adventure games, and on the other hand, it's a deep look at relationships, and also lots of poo jokes.
I think that was noted. Like, and I suppose the most poignant question to ask is, what is the status of episode 3?
In the works, in the works. So I think, I don't know. I hope I'm not like revealing any information that
I,
Fragment doesn't want to get it out, but so he realized recently that he's suffering from ADHD, quite heavily, in fact. He never really realized it, me neither. And it explained a lot of difficulties we also had, like working together. And yeah, he's looking into ways to medicate and deal with that. And I think then we're gonna quickly see a continuation. But he's really torn between projects a lot. He creates one thing, and then you, like, in addition, you get a lot of this imposter syndrome, especially like you create a game and then people play it all of a sudden, and then if you've got an episodic game, now you feel like, oh, people have got expectations. And he specifically wanted to do this game in this kind of way because he thought like nobody's gonna have any expectations on a game that looks like that. But yeah, now in episode 3, he's convinced people are looking at this with like expectations, and I guess some are. I mean, I do have expectations, and I'm really interested in how it continues. I know a couple of things that's gonna happen. I know he's got a weird plan like for the next couple of episodes. But yeah, I don't have any date I can tell you, unfortunately. It's in the
Right.
works. It's almost finished, like 90%. So it's gonna just be like a couple of years until the last 10%. Or yeah, who knows? Maybe end of the year. Who knows? But it's
Right.
gonna be finished. I think he will do that. Yeah, but it's gonna take a while. It's gonna be an adventure in itself, a journey, so to speak.
I suppose there would be expectations, if only because this is episode 3. You've
Yeah.
done 2 of them, and I'm not exactly sure where the expectations would lie. Like,
Yeah.
maybe not so much in the mechanics, but in the emotional core of the story.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
He also the last couple of years, or last year maybe even, he learned a lot about storytelling. So that this is one of his, I think, biggest strength is
mm,
telling stories, compelling stories and characters. And he had like this big realization that he's been like telling stories by thinking about like the flow of the story and like what he wants to have happened in there. And it always felt kind of hollow, especially now with episode 3. He felt like that there's like some core part missing. And then he realized that he never wrote characters. So he switched up his whole writing style from looking at like the broad story and like pushing the characters in there and make them do the stuff so the story evolves, to writing the characters and then looking at the characters and seeing what kind of story evolves out of their interactions. So he's kind of figuring it out. So I think that's also part of the hiccup now. And I wouldn't be surprised if like episode 4 and 5 would not take that long as episode 3 is now taking.
mm,
But no promises. Yeah.
right. Um, so we are getting low on time here. So I suppose I'll end things by asking: what other projects do you have in the works that we haven't talked about yet?
Well, I think like my focus is on the wizard right now. Crabman's focus definitely. Pepper Prince. But also we have something we want to do. We
Mhm.
haven't quite figured out how, and I think we never really talked to anybody about that. So I'm got a big reveal here. I'm gonna keep it a little bit obscure, I think. So what we've been thinking about, Crabman firstly, is um, you know, Fahrenheit, and what was the other one? The new one, or Heavy Rain and Detroit Becoming Human. These like cinematic games.
Right.
So
Like,
they've been like, I mean, mostly like critically panned on the one hand, because like, are they really games? Like, and is the storytelling really good? Like, I don't know.
I'm like,
I haven't played them, but I've heard a lot of people say like they marry the like the worst parts of both mediums. Like, not a good story, not a good game. But yeah, Crabman is really excited about like the idea, and these games have like the positive part that even though they might not be actually good, they are exciting in a way, and people love to play these games. People love to talk about these games, and that's something we are not good at. Like our games are niche games that nobody talks about, and that you're like, oh, that's really interesting and weird. And like for like some game aficionados, I think we do really interesting stuff. But for like the normal people out there, I think we are way too obscure and weird. Um, so we are trying to get the funds together, to get the expertise together, to work on yes, I don't know, how would you call it? A cinematic adventure game, focused on people, and it's gonna be take place in Germany, and it's gonna be a horror game. And you haven't nobody has really seen like the depth of Crabman's uh, darkest imaginations. I have through his movies and through his writings, but we have tried to make games that are kind of kid friendly and kind of positive. Like not all the games are, but like mostly. Like you can see a couple of the really dark games on our website. They are all by Crabman. And yeah, he's gonna make something really disturbing, really heavy, about like big topics, about big emotions, and he wants to claim the German horror genre. He wants to make something that's basically comparable to like Japanese horror games. Like that you look at that and you're gonna say like, oh wow, that's these weird German with their weird horror. And that's the big project we are thinking about. But obviously you will need a lot of, like, we're not gonna do it in pixel art. We want to do this for real. We want to do motion capturing. We want to get real actors to do the stuff to really sell the emotions, sell um, because that's the part of the excitement, obviously, of this kind of game. Like that, it looks like a movie you can interact with, and this we want to do. But it's gonna be some point in the future, because yeah, we gotta figure out the funding first.
well, I mean, I suppose we wish you good luck, since that does sound like a tall order on multiple fronts.
For sure, and we never have done anything like that. But we both have like experience with bigger companies who've done stuff like that. We know how to do that. We haven't done it ourselves yet, but I think we could pull it off. The only question is as it always is, like the money. But I feel like if we get the investment, I think that's gonna be a game that also sells, just because of the appeal on the outside. It's just like gonna look awesome, and it's gonna have cool trailers and stuff, and it's gonna be a game that people talk about. If we're gonna pull this off, I'm sure this will be like a big step for us.
Well, if it all comes together, no doubt.
Yeah.
And indeed, on that note, we must conclude our proceedings as we've reached the top of the hour, and people need to start going to work and all that.
Indeed.
So, um,
Yeah, thank
Jan,
you.
it was good having you on the program,
It's
and
nice to be here.
for all those who might be listening, either through the live broadcast or the later recording, if you enjoyed this interview, be sure to subscribe to the Twitch channel and hit the notification bell when we go live so that you'll be informed of when we broadcast next. And on that note, we will see you on Sunday for our typical view session. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah,